Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, this case of Madeline Soto, it is so extreme. I think that's why people are following it, and it raises up everyone's fears. Whether you're a parent, a school teacher, uh, a police officer, a fireman, anything in this world, a doctor, a lawyer, you see that among us, there are some really devious individuals among us. And sometimes the devious people are right inside your home, right inside your household. And so then, how do we protect our family members from these devious people? Well, first of all, bringing people into your home is a risky thing. Bringing people in who haven't been properly vetted. And again, when I say these things, I'm saying them as a retired NYPD police sergeant who worked for 16 years in the detective bureau, 10 years in homicide, 6.5 years in anti-crime. So I've seen a lot of the horrors that I'm talking about. I'm not saying this as a journalist. I'm saying this as someone that walked the walk. And I think now, because I walked that walk, I can talk the talk. And I'm looking at this case, I'm stepping back, but at the same time, I'm stepping right into it. And if you don't think these cases that we cover, even on a YouTube channel, affect us, then I'm going to tell you, you have a big surprise coming to you. They do affect us, And, someone made a comment yesterday. Oh, you guys are very sensitive for real tough cops. And as I said the other day, you cut us, we bleed. You hurt our feelings, we cry. You shoot us, we die. We're just human beings, And I just want to make that to be a point. And we feel these cases. But at the same time, we're going to give our honest perspective of what we think occurred from a police perspective. And we're going to give an honest report to you. And that's why I bring in Michael Geary, retired NYPD sergeant, attorney, professor. And I bring in Phil Grimaldi, retired NYPD detective, because I don't want to just give my perspective. I want to give the perspective of other experts. So, folks, hang on to your seat, hang on to your hats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. And you're entering the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Yesterday, guys, I went solo, and if you want to know how difficult that is, it's pretty difficult. It's like juggling, chewing gum, walking, and doing all those things at the same time. And I'm not acting like I'm that multi-talented, but today I have the pleasure of having a co-host with me, and you've seen him many times before. He's who I call the man of reason, very low-key, calm individual, has a calming influence over me. And I'm going to invite to the show retired NYPD sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney, and dad of 3 daughters. Welcome to the show, Mike Geary. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Bill. Good afternoon. Good to see you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Mike, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because so many other shows are talking about this, and I try not to watch other podcasts. And one of the reasons I don't is because I don't want to accidentally take their ideas, So I want to give it from my perspective and from my experience. But sometimes I will listen. And specifically, I wanted to listen to the psychologist, Dr. G, because everyone is analyzing the body language, of course, of Jennifer Soto, right, who's the mom
Right.
of Madeline, and of course, Stephan Sterns. And everyone has their opinions, and everyone wants to say, oh, that this proves this proves that. And just for me, I want to just mention that most detectives are outstanding at reading body language, especially NYPD detectives, because they literally interview thousands of people. But the question is, and the question I want to throw out to the audience is, okay, we all can say he's deceptive, she's deceptive, she's inconsistent, he's inconsistent. I don't believe him. Those aren't him. Okay, what are we going to do with that information now? And what a real detective is going to do, he's going to try to flip the script. When someone is lying and exhibiting body language that is inconsistent with the story they're telling, then they move towards getting some culpable statements from those people. And maybe not right then, maybe down the road, as per Jennifer Soto. Many people tell me online their opinion. I think she's involved. I think, and something, everyone is welcome to their opinion, something. And I have certain thoughts too. And I have a problem when people's stories are inconsistent and they change up and they're not even close to what the true narrative is. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, when I look at the videos, and we've talked about this with Phil and you, yeah, just basic common sense as a parent, you just think and you look at that family situation. You don't know it well, but just from what you know from on TV, the news, you realize that there's obviously dysfunction going on there. How much of it is known by the mom involving her daughter with this guy Stefan? And you just think, well, you use your common sense. Okay, could that ever happen in my household? I don't think so. And so when we make those kind of conclusions, we then say she probably knows. We may be wrong in those assumptions. When I went back this morning in preparation for this show, and I looked back at some of the videos, I went back and forth a couple of times with her statements. I could see where she seemed to be all over the place emotionally. She didn't know what to do. She looked like a deer in the headlights. And then, and that's okay because it's a really stressful situation. Obviously, she's looking at because she didn't know that her daughter had already been dead at that point. She was still hoping that the daughter would be out there somewhere found. But then there was some inconsistent statements she made that seemed to adopt Stefan's statements. And that's when I started to say, I'm not so sure. It's a real mixed bag. And it's really difficult to conclude, 100% sure that's the story or that isn't the story. It's very difficult to decipher because we all react to stress very differently. And not one script is 100%, the way people will always act under stress.
Mike, you hit it on the head. And that's why I would like to say to a lot of these body experts, uh, you know, reading body language experts, who I admire, and I really think, wow,
Right.
that's good. But not everyone's body movements, each
Mhm.
individual means the same. Like usually, you could say, oh, the person was looking up in the air. That's a sign of
Mhm.
deception. There's so many things that are, but is that a sign of deception for that person? Or does that person, one of the things I always used to, when I used to teach college, I used to always tell people one of the major ways to see someone is lying is if you ask them a question, you said, where are you coming from right now? And if they repeat that question, they're lying because they're trying to buy time
Yeah.
to tell the story. Where am I coming from? Oh, where am I coming from? Yeah, well, that you can bet that
Yeah.
that line afterwards is going to be a complete lie.
Right.
So, that's obvious things. But there are
Yeah.
certain things that can be just indicative of that person's personality. And
Yeah.
that person responds to stress and not the way that everyone else does. And that's indicative to a person, or that's
Mhm.
a trait of an individual. It's an individual trait. However, there are some signs, I don't like that. Someone bouncing around like she was, I'm not comfortable with that, and again, this woman just, she didn't know at the time, but her daughter was missing. She didn't know her daughter was dead,
Right.
or we think she didn't know. As I said, I'm questioning the involvement of Jennifer Soto, and I'm not 100% sure that she's out of, as Phil would say, the trick bag. Um, the case of course, Madeline Soto's disappearance and death has become more twisted as her mother's timeline is brought into question. Madeline Soto was 13. She vanished on February 26th, and her remains were found in the woods in Central Florida at around 4:30 p.m. 5 days later. And as we know, Stephan Sterns, who you see on the left side of this picture, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, Jennifer Soto, was considered the prime suspect in the case and is currently in jail on unrelated charges after being arrested on February 28th. Madeline's body was found in the area of Hickory Tree Road, the same street where Sterns was known to have been driving between 1 and 2:30 p.m. on the day that Madeline disappeared. So the police, of course, as we know, interviewed both of them. They interviewed Stephan Sterns. And the way he wound up under arrest was that they asked if they could look into his phone. And he allowed them to, because he thought he did what's known as a factory reset of his phone the same day that Madeline disappeared. And he thought all those incriminating photos were gone. Guess what? They were not gone. And that's what he's under arrest for. And we know, I don't want to repeat what's in the arrest warrant, but we know that those charges, and if you want to pull up the arrest warrant, anyone that's listening, watching, I'm not going to pull it up here. I just think it's that horrific, that egregious. I don't want to get people clicking on my show to hear that. Just suffice it to say that the information on that is absolutely horrific. Mike.
Yeah, Bill, he came to light because obviously the police got to figure out who was the last person to see Madeline alive, what was the chronology of events that day. And I always talk to my students about a chronology of events, because if you could put people at a particular place at a particular time talking or doing something to somebody else, you can then get a better understanding of what crime occurred. And he's the last one. He admitted to having her driving her to school. And so obviously they're going to discuss the case with him. He's going to give his story. They may feed him some false lines, maybe in the beginning, to see what he says, maybe not. But they're looking at his phone because they want to see what did she text him, what did she email him, did she call him, that sort of thing. And so they can get a better understanding of what transpired from the time that he said she disappeared to the time that the police were notified. What went on? Did he drop her off, and then she texted him, like, say 4 hours later, saying, "Hey, I forgot my lunch. Could you drop my lunch off to school?" or something like that. All kinds of little things that go on, innocent things that go on. But when they looked at that phone, they realized that they had a child predator, a sexual abuser, and therefore, SA, and therefore they had to do something quick. And they realized they got the warrant for his arrest. They arrested him, and that's a great thing. No matter what transpires from that point on, he's going to be in prison for a really long time, and so therefore there's no rush on everything else. But he put himself in the trick bag, as Phil loves to say, because he obviously admitted to being the last one to see Madeline alive, and therefore, in some ways, the police were lucky, because he probably is one of the first people that they interviewed, and he ends up giving them a tremendous amount of information, and gives them the ability to put him in prison for a long time while they finish investigating her case and await, autopsy results and blood analysis and chemical analysis and things like that. But great work by the Kissimmee Police Department. Really great work.
Outstanding work. I want to play a little bit of this, Mike, here.
Investigation into this local sheriff and how the story Madeline's mother provided law enforcement doesn't line up with what investigators know.
We spoke one-on-one with Jennifer Soto last Tuesday. Good afternoon. I'm Darlene Jones.
And I'm Greg Wormuth. At that point, her daughter Madeline had been missing for 1 day. She told us that Stephan Sterns, her boyfriend and now the prime suspect in Madeline's death, had taken the teenager to school. She said the last conversation she had with the 13-year-old was the night before. But this report we got a hold of today shows she told deputies she saw her daughter the morning of her disappearance.
That's very disturbing to me. As an investigator, she says that she saw him the night before, and then she told the police that she saw her. Am I getting it mixed up? She saw her the night before, and then she told, I think, the press that she saw her that morning.
Right.
So those type of discrepancies, it's a lie, right? It's a lie. So why are you lying? Why are you trying to cover up? And what are you trying to cover up?
Appearance. Channel 9 investigative reporter Shannon Butler has been digging into the details of this case. She joins us live in studio. And Shannon, that's not the only thing you noticed in this new report.
Greg, no one has been charged in Madeline Soto's death, but we do know investigators are looking into who knew what and when. And some of that means looking at those initial interviews of the couple and the ones later on. Sources tell me the statements about the timeline are not consistent. Jennifer Soto told us last week that the last conversation she had with her daughter was about her 13th birthday party the night before Maddie disappeared.
I told her good night, and yeah, that was it.
But according to documents, Sunday night was not the last time Soto saw Maddie. New documents show that Maddie's mom told deputies on February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 o'clock that morning.
So I exactly mixed it up. So she said I initially said she saw the night before. She told deputies that she saw her getting dressed, but I believe she told the press something different. So that is absolutely disturbing in my mind as an investigator.
Yeah, it's a huge red flag.
And took the teen to school. But since that initial report was taken, we learned from the Orange County Sheriff that Maddie was likely dead earlier than that.
Our detectives have determined that Madeline was never dropped off. Instead, we believe she was already dead at the time, and that Stephan Sterns moved her body in the early morning hours on that day.
Channel 9 has been going through statements from Stephan Sterns and Soto trying to piece together what happened in the last few hours of the little girl's life, starting with our interview of the couple. Her mom told us last week.
We dropped her off at school, close to school.
There's another one. She was not in the car. She was not there. So there's another thing, using the term we as opposed to saying he drove her, Stephan Sterns. She's saying we. And I have a distinct problem with that.
Huge.
She wanted to walk the rest of the way.
But in that same interview, then said,
I wasn't the one who took her to school in the morning. That was my partner. But yeah.
Detectives believe Maddie was likely dead early Monday morning because a video timeline shows Maddie's belongings being dumped in a dumpster at 7:35 by Sterns. At 8:19, Sheriff Mina said video shows Maddie in Sterns' vehicle believed to be deceased. Since then, the case has moved to Kissimmee Police, and sources tell us that Soto has been interviewed multiple times by detectives at 2 agencies, and that they are looking closely at all the statements she's made. But officially, Kissimmee Police won't comment. So this initial report also shows that Sterns told investigators that after Maddie got out of his car, she stopped to look in that book bag before he drove away. That same book bag was found actually in the dumpster. After her death, he then said he went home for about an hour after going to the vape store and running errands. He was home that day until 2:30. Detectives say a tip showed him changing a flat tire not far from where the little girl's body was found that afternoon.
All right, Shannon, it is starting to piece together. Thank you. We also spoke to suspect Stephan Sterns before he was arrested. He also told us he dropped off Madeline for school the morning of her disappearance.
She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day.
How convenient that was to say she was asleep most of the way, as whether he knew or not that there was video seeing her propped up in his car.
Right.
And Chief Mena said she was dead at that point. So this guy, and again, I'll use a Gearyism, consciousness of guilt. He's trying to cover his ass in case the cameras caught her, and they did catch her in the car. Look, this guy's a savage of all savages, but he's like most criminals, he's slippery, and even though, and we'll get into a little more later on his body language, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And most criminals can lie like they're telling you the truth. And that's why some of them can even pass a lie detector test, because I always found that people that believe their own lies, they were the hardest people to get them to change their statements once
Yeah.
you caught them in a lie,
Yeah. And remember, interview was probably right before the police actually got access to his cell phone and saw what was actually on the cell phone. So at this point, he's playing the role of a distraught stepdad. Yeah.
In school when she got out, I love her. She said, thanks, love you too. That was it.
Again, law enforcement believes Sterns never drove Madeline to school and that she was already dead that morning.
Greg, also breaking this afternoon, the state attorney's office says it's asking the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate how and why a photo that appeared to be a body in the woods was posted to the Osceola County Sheriff's personal Instagram page. Yeah. The photo was posted less than 24 hours after investigators found Madeline Soto's body. Sheriff Marcos Lopez, who you see here, said he accidentally posted the image when sharing a post of himself visiting a senior citizens area.
That's pretty horrific too, that this sheriff accidentally posted a crime scene photo. How do you do that? If this is true, he should be disciplined. It's a horrific mistake. If it was a mistake and it wasn't done on purpose, which I can't see why anyone would do that on purpose, but
Right.
It's just absolutely horrific. So let's get back, Mike, to the body language, and everyone's seen, of course, the interview of Jennifer Soto and, of course, Stephan. And their body language is inappropriate for the questions being asked. Some of the answers that they give are inconsistent, and as I said, many people, the Dr. G, who I listened to his show a little bit because I'm interested in what body language observers have to say. He said, of course, that, and this is understandable, Jennifer Soto was displaying a tremendous amount of anxiety, as a human being would do if their daughter was missing, right? But then some of the other things he noticed was her lips were pursed. And sometimes people purse their lips because they're trying to be very selective and very careful as not to say the wrong thing. And I mean, that also could be understandable in a situation like this, because so much information is being put out there. And she is maybe even told information by the police. And everything about her body language is going to be observed by the public and people that are watching that TV channel at the time was searching for Madeline Soto. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, when you look back now and Madeline has passed, and then you look back and then you view the mother's comments, her facial features, the pursing of lips, looking up in the air. These are things I do in the classroom sometimes. You look, I clean my glasses when I'm trying to be thoughtful. We all have our little idiosyncrasies. But when they first aired, it probably didn't stir a lot of alarms and raise red flags. But now, knowing that Madeline was already deceased, and now you're saying to yourself, okay, how much did she know at this time? Looking back, we're like, we start to pick apart all those little idiosyncrasies and say, that is actually indicative of criminal mindset, guilt, covering up for the boyfriend, covering up for herself, and some of that may be accurate, but again, people are very individualistic in the way they handle stress. When I'm stressed out, a lot of times I'll lick my front teeth, like that, because I'm I get very quiet. Other people gesticulate a lot, but it's not a science. Body language is not a science like physics or mathematics or biology. A lot of it is it's like a behavioral science, looking at how people act, what they say, their physical movements, their cadence, and everything else. But looking back on it now, we see like, wow, yeah, those things that she's doing may not seem normal to us, but she was under tremendous stress. Now, either from being very uncomfortable in that environment, being interviewed, not being sure what she could say, what the police would want her to say. I think at one point she said, I'm not sure if I can answer that question, because she's thinking about what the police may have told her. So I understand there's a lot there to look at. It's a cornucopia of all kinds of emotions and behavioral patterns. But I hope that people just, without anything further, without some other objective indication of her involvement, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon and say, absolutely, she is guilty. This and this and this and this are indications of that. At this point, it seems like we have our feelings and we're kind of moving in that direction, but I would hold off on outright, accusing her unless there's a lot more there, a lot more objective evidence.
Absolutely. Here's Susan Constantine, a psychologist and body language expert on Law and Crime with Vinnie Politan. We'll play a little bit of this.
Back with us. Susan, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. I want to get into this. I want to show you first Stephan Sterns, who agreed to an interview. This is the night after Madeline disappeared, which is also the day before he was arrested. This is all courtesy of WFTV in Orlando. You know that station well. We have the video. Let's watch it together.
I dropped her off. Everything looked fine when I drove away. It's the last time we saw her.
What were the conversations that y'all had in the car when you dropped her off?
Not much. She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out. I love her. Said thanks, love you too. That was it.
And so where do you think she could possibly be? I mean, this isn't, as I was told, this isn't normal behavior.
This is not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she can be. And we're scared. We just want her home.
Are you, in a sense, blaming yourself?
It's hard not to. It just keeps coming in waves. This reality keeps hitting. And we don't know where she is. We don't know if she's safe.
He's wiping no tears. That's another thing that many of the body language aficionados had said. He's wiping away his eyes that have no tears in them. So there's absolutely a sign of deception there.
We're just scared. We just want her home. Conflicting reports here and there. People say they see this or that. None of it's conclusive and none of it's helpful. We just want our baby girl back.
Okay, Susan, let's start with Stephan Sterns, who's in custody now for what was found on his phone, but obviously a suspect in this investigation. What are your thoughts about his statement there? There was a lot.
There was a lot. In fact, when I was covering this on Fox 35, I urgently stated right on air that the sheriff's department needs to consider this person as a suspect in her missing. So anyway, when I'm watching his body language, you know that he's looking.
You know, Mike, I just want to make a comment on that. Don't you think the police knew that? They didn't need to consult a psychologist and have her tell them. Don't you think they absolutely? To me, that's a little bit, when you're a professional police, that's a little bit insulting. They didn't need to consult you. They knew what they had. They knew what they were dealing with. They know how to read body language. They're not on TV talking about it because they're not allowed to. They have to keep this stuff close to the vest. But I find that a little bit amusing, to tell you the truth.
Looking down a lot. So he does what we call eye blocking. He doesn't make eye contact when he's actually talking to the reporter. That's always a concern for me. But let's cluster things together, okay? So when you see him taking these really deep breaths in and it comes back out, those are manufactured. It didn't go in sync with his emotional affect on his face. There's also, if you look really close, there's asymmetry in his eyebrows. One will lift up a little higher than the other one. Natural emotion will move synergistically or in synchrony on both sides. So anytime asymmetrically is always a side of concern. The other thing is there's no tears, Vinny. We're looking at him. He doesn't have red bloodshot eyes. He doesn't have any tears coming down his face. He's got this kind of scratchiness in his voice, and he's pushing these emotions to appear like he's very sad and he's worried. I don't see it. There's no stressors in the forehead. There's no sadness in his eyebrows. To me, it's an all great big fabricated story. And the other thing I want to mention, when he said that she was asleep, I think she was asleep, but it wasn't that she was asleep. In the real world, she was already dead. I think that was where she was already dead at that point.
Yeah, the dry wipe always gets me, right? You're dabbing your eye, but there's nothing there to dab. What are you doing? Like,
it's all fake. It's a big fake out. That's all it is.
I mean, I've seen that in courtrooms, but and here he is in this moment. I'm surprised that he even would appear on television, but he did. Now, I know you also, as you mentioned, you did the analysis before the arrest, by the way, on Fox 35 down there. And there was another interview with the mother where he's in the background. And a lot of people have been talking about, like, what's he doing back there? It was odd behavior.
Yeah, so it's almost kind of like stalker behavior where he pushed himself kind of in the background so that he wasn't present in the front of the camera. And it was because he was watching her, watching the environment. Also, too, when he first walked in the room, he made a lot of noise. He bopped down the trash can. There was a lot of agitation that was going on. He didn't sit next to her to support her. He was in the back. But keep in mind, now look at, he's not crying. He's really concerned. I really love her. But yet there's no unity between them. So that's what I thought was very strange on the front end of it. The other thing is that when you look at what she says, and I actually wrote it down, right here, Jan Soto says, I went to go pick her up at school and she wasn't there. And then simultaneously, you have to look at things at how they sync together. Right at that moment, what does he do? He starts stretching and cracking his knuckles. This is where tension is built up. When a person is feeling highly stressed, they may stretch their fingers out and they start cracking their knuckles to kind of release this lactic acid. The second part of that was, Jen says, that there's a lot of conflict of who took him to school. First of all, I think it's all big, a whole big fabricated story. I don't.
I really do like this body language stuff. However, I think that it's mostly for show. It's mostly for show because, Mike, as you know, we come from the NYPD, and we don't mean to be braggadocios, but we think we have the greatest detectives in the world.
We do.
They know how to do this. And they don't need a TV psychologist to tell them how to read body language. In fact, I would imagine the Kissimmee Police Department are fantastic because so far they've done a fantastic job. And they're the ones doing an interview with a live perp. All right. So that takes a lot of talent. a lot of experience, knowing when to lay back
Mhm.
and knowing when to push in harder. And at some point, guess what happened? Mike, you know.
Yeah. Well, what happened is, they played the good cop, bad cop. You lead them, get them comfortable in the beginning. You bring them in. You start asking them questions. You check out to see whether or not what he's saying is actually true. He's covering up. Once he starts to cover up and say things like, for instance, about other people seeing her go off to school, they place that in the room. He agrees to it and adopts it as his own. Boom, that's consciousness of guilt, because he's actually lying, and they know he's factually lying about what's going on. So therefore, he's using that to cover up. I mean, that's something that police love to do. You bring
Well,
them
Mike,
in.
I meant to lead you in a different direction. I meant
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
lead you to the fact that if you go in too hard, he's going to lawyer up.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Again.
Very
And
first thing.
that's
Yeah.
where I thought I would lead you right to,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
I led the horse to water, but the horse did not drink.
No, no. I was
So,
looking over there.
but that's where a detective has to use a lot of finesse.
Yeah.
Because if you push too hard, that's when someone's going, something, I think I better get an attorney. And that you don't want that to happen as a detective, because once that happens, as we educate our chat, is the interview is over.
Right.
You cannot interview any longer. Once the now defendant, because they have probable cause. So you may ask, so then how can detectives talk to someone for hours and they just keep talking to them because the person they do not have probable cause to arrest the person. So they keep talking. But once the person says, I want an attorney, even if they don't have probable cause, the interview is over.
Right.
It's over. And that is the criminal procedure law. So I love all these psychologists, and I think what they do as far as body language and all this stuff is great, but the detective has to do this live. They have to do it live, reading the body language in the box, and the stakes are so much higher than watching someone be interviewed by a journalist, which, by the way, that can be used in a court of law to show deception. Speak upon that, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just take a look at when they show that clip that you showed everyone. In the very beginning of the clip, he said the word we. We dropped her off, meaning he and Jennifer, the mother. So, he's being deceptive there. So when you later on, you look at the video and you realize that, whatever cameras they had, surveillance cameras near the school, whatever, on the street, and you see only one person in the car with the daughter, he's lying. When you're talking to the police, and for instance, in this case, in the beginning, the first 24 hours of the case, you're approaching him, even though he's told you he's probably the last person who's seen her alive, and that is going to click an alarm bell inside the detective's head. He just can't go roughshod over this person. He's got to talk to this person. You can't be confrontational. You got to remember, no matter what you think of this guy, you got to find that girl. Finding that girl is number one. That is of paramount importance. Any information you get out of him, whatever he says, even your instincts may be wrong about his guilt. So you still got to get that girl. You just got to find that girl. Therefore, anything and everything that he says is related to helping solve a crime. He's not being accused of the crime. He's not a suspect of the crime. Later on, of course, after you look at his phone and you realize what pictures are on it, then he goes to the top of the class, and that's when he lawyered up. But in the beginning, when the police are talking to you, if you say you're a witness to a crime, you want to give them information, that sort of thing, they're not questioning you as a police officer questioning a criminal suspect, and you're not under suspicion. You're giving the officer information that they could use to help solve a crime. There's no Miranda warnings needed. That does not come under, those kind of questions do not come under the protective umbrella of the Miranda warnings. And so therefore, whenever police approach people and say, could you help me find this person? Could, I need some help. You volunteer, you say, I think I can help you. I've got some information. That's not protected by Miranda because you're not a suspect and you're not being questioned as a suspect. So therefore, anything and everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law if it ever comes down to it. But if you are not a suspect, all of that information will help the police then get the suspect. So Miranda does not apply in these sort of situations.
Absolutely. From the chat, Lynn B4 Gale. I don't believe it was an accident unless he drugged her so he could have his way with her and she died from an overdose. The creep needs to be incarcerated for life. Lynn B4 Gale, I think there is no doubt. There's 100% chance it was no accident. This was not an act. This was a murder, And some of the things I think we have to realize, and folks in the chat have to realize, is that the police know a lot more than we know. They know a lot more than the press knows. They know a lot more than the public knows because they do what's called a victimology. And I discussed that so many times on this show. They interview friends, families, teachers of Madeline Soto and find out who knew about this, horrific relationship. Who knew about it? I guarantee there's some of her friends probably knew about this. And when I spoke about yesterday, mandatory reporters, let's hope there was no mandatory reporter that knew this and didn't report it, because that in itself is a crime. That's, as Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, who was in the chat yesterday, said, that's an A misdemeanor. If a mandatory reporter, a teacher, a cop, a fireman, a nurse, a doctor, if one of those people fails to report, they can be arrested. And let's hope there's no one in that category here. However, as part of the victimology, they have to canvass everywhere and interview every single person that knows Madeline. The other thing is the car of Stephan is a crime scene, all right? The home of Madeline Soto, a crime scene. There was a search warrant. Do we know what the results of that search warrant were? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows but the police. The results of the autopsy of Madeline Soto. None of us know what the results were. That in itself, of course, potentially could be a treasure trove of information, the crime scene where they found her body. And I know this is all graphic and upsetting for a lot of people, but this is investigation and this is police work where the art of investigation meets the science of investigation. And when it comes together, it's such a powerful, powerful tool that puts away, that is designed to put away dirtbags like this guy on the left, like this savage. And thank God the police and science has come around to be able to get the goods on a savage like this, And I know some people will say to me, Bill, he's innocent till proven guilty. And I will say, something? That's our system. And you're right, he is. But something? Based on what they found in his phone, I'm one of the people that at this point thinks they got the right guy. Mike.
Yeah, Bill, there's always that, legal standard, innocent until proven guilty, and God bless that standard. That's fabulous. But that doesn't mean we cannot use our common sense. And as veteran officers, civilians, anyone else can say, based on what I know, based on my common sense, if that is true, I'm having a really difficult time holding off, with a conviction or believing that person committed the crime. It all kind of adds up because that's what you use. You use your common sense, and that's what jurors will use if this goes to trial. They will use their common sense and therefore render a verdict. But we cannot part from our emotions when we see what the evidence the police have already, and we look at the situation and how that little girl disappeared and then was found. We can absolutely make conclusions, very valid conclusions about his guilt or innocence. Absolutely.
100%. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family members. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with count 'em, 5 different levels. And we so appreciate our subscribers, our friends, our YouTube, the Police Off the Cuff family. And you guys are what enables us to keep this show going. And I always like to say this, 77% of our audience are women. How is that? You know, I thought I was Elvis or something. No, it's 70%. I think that's has something to do with the true crime audiences, mostly women, but 70%, 77% of the Police Off the Cuff audience is women. Keep coming. We appreciate you tremendously. So, Mike, let's get back to the whole premise now. Many people have emailed me and they've posted in the chat. Is Jennifer Soto involved? And early on in the case, many people got so upset that I would even suggest that. And now when we see these interviews and the inconsistencies and how long that this has been going on, the potentiality that she is involved is a real thing. Let me just play a little bit of this.
Everyone reacts in different ways, but she's just terrible. And there's no, I mean, the grief you would feel losing your child would just be so evident. Remember when we saw Casey Anthony Benny back at Camp Casey? I mean, she kind of reminds me of you won't use her name, so I won't use her name, but at Camp Casey in Florida.
That woman. Rick?
I know you're going to say that.
As I hear, do you get a sense as she's speaking that maybe she knows more than she's letting on?
You know, Vinny, so yes, I do. The answer is yes, I do. But what I want to say is, to Mr. Kessler's point, that an innocent person, sometimes anybody, and I think we all talk about this at one time or another, anybody, when you're faced with law enforcement or an authority figure talking to you, you can be nervous in general. You know, so now you add on to that, you know, you are under the emotional stress of your child is missing, you're fearful for what could happen. And because of that, you become more nervous and you say things that might seem to be incriminating. And so it's helpful to have a lawyer in those situations, someone who can speak to law enforcement for you and give you the information that they need without implicating you in a crime. And I think that's where she has really, she's kind of implicated herself and messed up.
Mike, should Jennifer Soto hire an attorney?
If she hasn't by this point, she ought to, because, you know, whether or not, again, that gentleman said it best. You may say things in your nervousness. You may, we've all done that when you are very, very scared and you're very stressed out. You may say things that may be wrong. Perhaps maybe you're trying to cover up for something something else you may have done wrong or somebody else did wrong. You're trying to make, extricate yourself from a situation that maybe you did do a few things that looking back were not cool. But if as an attorney, I'd say you got to get an attorney now. If you don't get an attorney now, forget about it. You got to get an attorney, defense attorney that will stand in the way of her and the police. I think she's probably not done herself any favors whatsoever with the public or the police in this case. She needs an attorney. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that down the road, and again, the police are going to take their time with this case because there's no reason to rush, and because the main guy is in jail right now, and he's not going anywhere. So if there is potentially a case against Jennifer Soto, they can build that case and take their time, and it doesn't seem that she's a danger to the public leaving her out there right now.
In St. Cloud, days after being reported missing.
Documents obtained by West 2 today allege that Stephan Sterns, the boyfriend of Madeline Soto's mom, was sexually abusing that teen for nearly 2 years. Haley Crumblehome breaks down what else these documents reveal. Haley.
So according to those documents, law enforcement was able to find some disturbing videos and images on Sterns' phone, despite the fact that he said he accidentally did a factory reset on that phone the day that Madeline disappeared. But like I said, law enforcement were still able to get some significant information off of that phone. They say the pictures and videos they found on it show he had been sexually abusing Madeline since at least August of 2022, when she was just 11. They say the room that could be seen in some of the pictures is a room in the home Madeline shared with her mother and with Sterns. Now, right now, Sterns is being held here in the Osceola County Jail on no bond on charges of sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material. Live in Osceola County.
So, Mike, going back to 2021, I think it was 2022, this horrific thing was happening. This abuse was happening to Madeline Soto. Could it be? And I can't believe it that Jennifer Soto knew nothing of it. I just don't buy it. I just totally don't buy it.
As a parent, it's really hard to buy the fact that you wouldn't know that your child is being a victim of sexual abuse in your own home. So it makes it difficult for us to buy her story. If she does have some, criminal liability in this case for, not reporting an episode of this, maybe perhaps that she became aware of, then she's in the trick bag, as Phil would say, and she better have a lawyer, and she better figure out a way that she could turn state's evidence quickly and do herself a favor. But it's possible she is totally out to lunch in that respect and say, oh, well, it could, I had no idea whatsoever. I'm having difficulty with that as a parent. It's a great argument in a vacuum, but when you enclose that argument in with common sense and start analyzing with common sense as a parent, I think no, there had to be something that must have at least a couple of times, got her antennas up, because I don't see how that could happen in that home for that length period of time without there being some real objective indications of the troubling indications of some sort of unnatural a relationship between her and her daughter and Stephan. I don't buy it whatsoever. Not at all.
I don't either. From the chat, I'm so Jacqueline. I liked what Dr. G said. She seemed awkward, odd. Jacqueline, I brought that up a little bit because when people are professionals, psychologists that analyze body language, I don't buy everything they say. And to Dr. G's credit, he said, look, I could be wrong about everything I'm saying right here. But he is an experienced psychologist. And he says it appears to him that Jennifer Soto is just a very awkward person. And some of her reactions to her daughter at that point when she was interviewed by journalists, by the press, she showed her awkwardness. But did that show, and I'll toss this to Professor Geary, did that show consciousness of guilt, or was that just part of her awkwardness?
Yeah, Billy, it could be part of her awkwardness. We all have our little idiosyncrasies when we're talking naturally like this before a group of people. Say, for instance, you have to give a toast at a wedding or something like that, or a party, and you suddenly are put on the spot. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be a little awkward, perhaps, unless you've done this 100 times. And so therefore, we could always say, oh, yeah, that is absolutely pointing out to consciousness of guilt. She's covering for the boyfriend, absolutely without a doubt. Boom, charge her. But it may be that's her own idiosyncrasies. And unless we've been, in some sort of situation, highly emotionally charged situation, we might not, we might actually behave or speak in the same manner she did. So, yeah, no way can we sit there and conclusively say, we could be suspicious, but you conclusively say, oh, yeah, that's evidence. Oh, that is absolute evidence. I don't think so. I don't see it.
You know, one of the things early on in the investigation, the sheriff, Mena, I believe his name is. I'm going to play a little clip of him, but he used some language in his statement that I had a little bit of a problem with, and he used the word. We were confident that Madeline was dead at this point. I just don't think that was the word to use during that, or we believed probably would have been a better word, because confident is usually used in front of something positive that's going to happen next.
Right.
And look, I don't want to belie or beat him down for it, but I just thought it was a bad choice of words.
We're still in the middle of this investigation. There's a lot of things that we cannot reveal.
At this time, are there anything yet? Has Stern spoken to anybody yet?
No, Stearns has not spoken to anyone.
Is there any possible specifics that you can give us as to what leads you to believe that she is definitively deceased?
The video evidence that we have.
Is it about just the position of her body, the way?
So we're not going to go into those exact details, but we have video evidence that leads us to believe that she's already dead.
Sheriff, there's been a lot of things that you just laid out here just now. This location in the afternoon, is there a belief, or are we trying to figure out, I know you're requesting video surveillance in that area, are you trying to figure out whether she was still with this car at that time?
Yeah, so it could be helpful to us if people saw something. And obviously, we're searching many different areas. But if someone saw something in that area, we want to know about it.
Is that an area you've already searched?
What's that?
Where this car supposedly had a flat, is that an area you've already searched?
So we actually have people searching areas right now. So they've searched a bunch of different areas, and they're going to continue to search. So I don't want to go into specifics on exactly where. I don't want to miss something. One more time.
Did she leave the house? Was she at that time? Did you believe that she was? Did she leave the house on her own?
So what I'll say is what I already said is that we believe he moved her body in those early morning hours, and all that is still under investigation.
The mother is cooperating with the investigation?
Yes, we're talking to the mother. Yes.
She's not considered a suspect.
So we're talking to the mother and all this. There's, to my knowledge, she's not a suspect in this case right now.
You had mentioned that he dropped some items in the dumpster. Did you recover those?
That's correct. So from the dumpster, we recovered her backpack and her school-issued laptop.
Sheriff, do we believe that I know that you're piecing things together with different portions of video. Is it the department's belief that she was killed at the house?
It's our belief that she was killed in Kissimmee and that he moved her body. And so that's why the Kissimmee Police Department is the lead investigators now.
As for messages that you had said that Madeline might have sent about living in the woods when she turned 13, are you questioning whether those were actually sent by her rather than someone else?
Yeah, that's all part of the investigation, so we haven't determined that yet.
Have you been in touch with Madeline's family? How are they taking this?
Yeah, so obviously detectives have spoken to her mother, and as you can imagine, the reaction that any parent would have.
So this is transitioned from a disappearance investigation to a murder investigation headed up by the Kissimmee Police Department.
That is correct. It is transitioned to a homicide investigation, and the Kissimmee Police Department will be the lead agency in that investigation.
At this point, any new charges?
We're still investigating it.
I have a question for you, Chief, regarding new charges, because we noticed there's an additional charge for sex battery on a victim under the age of 12. Are you continuing to go through his phone and find more evidence?
The detectives are continuing the investigation, and as more evidence comes up, there may be more charges in the future.
Is it believed that Madeline was a victim in that part of the investigation?
That's still all part of the investigation. I don't want to say right now.
What about the church footage that somebody mentioned that she was seen wearing she was seen at the church?
So yes, we reviewed that footage. It was very grainy. We weren't able to determine that was her, but like I said, we know that she was never dropped off at school that morning.
Are you assigning extra personnel to this case over the weekend? Are searches continuing?
That's correct. Searches are continuing as we speak. And so, like I said, we have.
So obviously, this press conference was before I believe that they found the body. Just to answer some of your or anticipate some of your questions, Kissimmee Police Department wound up with the case because they either determined that, well, they determined that the murder occurred in Kissimmee, and that's the criteria. Um, they where the body was found, if they can't determine where the murder occurred, then they would give it to the police agency where the body was found. However, I believe there's a possibility that they know uh, the location where the murder took place. Um, but the Chief Mena said with confidence, we believe it happened in Kissimmee. So I think they know. Um, he actually answered a lot more questions than I expected him to answer. Most police chiefs would be like, I can't speak to that. This is an ongoing investigation that could compromise, but he answered a lot of questions. And I was a little bit surprised at how much he answered, which is good for us and good for the press. It puts out there, but there's also many, many, many new questions and more questions that need to be answered. Mike.
Yeah, I think the reason why it picks, it gets your antennas up that he answered so many questions. I think it's because they're very, very confident that they have the person who committed the crime in custody, and the only other person who could possibly in the future be a suspect they have on their radar, and that possibly could be the mother, depending on how things go. Because he did say she's not a suspect right now. So if he thought there was another person out there or persons out there that were involved in this, perhaps, driving like a getaway car or something like that in another kind of scenario, then he probably would have been a lot more circumspect. But I think that's really just all of his answers were a reflection of the fact that they think they've got this pretty much, pretty much know exactly what happened, where it happened, how it happened, why it happened, that sort of thing. And so that's why it was a pretty comprehensive, press conference.
Mike, I want to talk about some of the things that many people might not realize. And I want to talk about the evidence. Okay. Obviously, the evidence that put Stephan Sterns was the evidence on his cell phone. And realizing that got him arrested for different charges, but that will keep him in jail and potentially prison for a long time if, for whatever reason, they don't bring an indictment on this case
right
for a while. It'll keep him in. So what will bring, or what potentially could bring Jennifer Soto into this to being charged? And I want to talk about forensic evidence. The home. We don't know what they recovered, and they did a search warrant right away in that home. What did they recover inside that home? Very important. We potentially have 3 different cell phones here that are of concern. One would be Madeline's cell phone, which could have a treasure trove of evidence. She could have things in her cell phone that talk about what her life is like, things that had been occurring in her life. Then we have to look at Jennifer Soto's cell phone. And we already know that Stephan, his cell phone already put him in jail, didn't it?
Right.
So all of these things. And then there's text messages, right? There's the GPS on Stephan Sterns' vehicle. Where was his car? Where did it exactly go? And there was a phone call that day that he had a flat tire right near where the body was found.
Right.
So all of these, then we have the crime scene where Jennifer Soto's, where Madeline Soto's body was found. The body itself, potential DNA, potentially if she fought back, could have DNA underneath her fingernails. What was at the crime scene? What was she wearing? If they found the actual place of occurrence where the murder took place, another crime scene, right? All of these things, when we talk about the art and the science of investigation, the art, of course, is police work. the police going out and talking to people, interviewing people, soliciting information, collecting video. Look how important video has become in all cases almost. And what do they see at 7:30 in the morning? They see Stephan Sterns throwing her clothing and her laptop into the dumpster at the complex that they live in. How powerful of evidence is that, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, that's amazing because they're going to get things that everything that could be on a laptop, that you can imagine, pictures, all kinds of files and stuff like that. And then you look at the clothing. Was there blood on that clothing? Was that blood on his jacket? Was it up near the collar, which would indicate that she had some facial bruising? Where did that occur? What kind of some sort of liquid could be on that? Could be blood or something else, some other sort of thing. That's going to be really, really very damaging because that's the scientific evidence that can just turn that lock and throw away the key. And for Jennifer, for the mom, at this point, she better hope that there's nothing on her cell phone, nothing in Madeline's laptop, which would indicate that there was some sort of prior knowledge of SA or physical abuse against Madeline. If there was any sort of notice that she had given through a text message or something like that, she better hope so, that it doesn't exist, because that would kind of indicate that to a police officer, or to a juror, or to a district attorney or a judge, that Jennifer Soto wasn't innocent and was perhaps complicit in this as almost like an accessory before the fact, that sort of thing. So there are some things that could put Jen Soto in the trick bag, and they still may be recovered. Remember, we have her version of events, which is kind of inconsistent with what facts that are known to the police. She seems kind of protective of the boyfriend, Stephan, in the interview, saying we, so that she puts herself and him together. So therefore, it couldn't be either one of them. This must have been some stranger that did this to their child. So there are some things that we may be able to find, if they exist, that could put Jennifer under the hot lights and be another suspect.
Leaf Morgan from the chat. I'm pretty sure the police would interview her again. Not over. She's not arrested right now, but they will figure it out when she lied. But Leaf, one of the problems with that is you only get one shot, and they can't interview her again. She's got an attorney, so that opportunity is over. And whatever interview they got, and the police know this. This is no surprise to them. They know they got one shot at her, right? So if there's any inkling, if there's any suspicion when she's brought in for an interview, you got to go for it. You got to go for it right there, because you got to know that her boyfriend was arrested. So who do you think they're going to start bearing down on next? Jennifer.
Right.
So she was already interviewed once. So what's she going to do? She's going to lawyer right up, and the police can no longer interview her. I just wanted to put that out there, because everyone thinks that, the police can just go interview again. No, they cannot. That is it. It's over. The opportunity was there, and I'm not saying they blew it. They probably got a lot of good information, but they can't go back to the well. That's past. That boat has sailed. It cannot do it.
Yeah, Billy.
Love Shack. Let me just get this. Love Shack, Sarah. Did he even really have a job? If not, why not? Was he left to be a stay-at-home dad while she worked? Love Shack, Sarah, we're not seeing anywhere that he had a job. He was, it seems like he's 40 years old. He's still getting money from his parents. How pathetic is that? Read into that, And then he was maybe sponging off Jennifer, living with her. I don't get it. I totally don't get it. Mike, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just thinking, the only way I think that she would have her, if she has an attorney, her lawyer would want her to talk to the police, is if they actually do uncover, the police actually uncover something incriminating against her. The attorney might say, look, let's go in there, let's talk to the police. I'd whisper in her ear, you would have to sell out Stephan in order to get yourself a good deal. But right now the police have some information, and you look like an accessory before the fact or after the fact. So you're in trouble right now. We're going to be walking on some very hot coals in that interview room. I'm going to be with you, but if there's some way that you can give them information, whatever you have, that would save you from your boyfriend's fate, because he's going down the river. He's not ever coming back. You have to save yourself. You should just give him up. And that's the only way I think that the police would get another interview with her. I would
Well,
like
Mike,
to see what happens.
that's down the road. If
Yeah.
the
Oh,
district
yeah.
attorney wants to cut her a deal,
Right.
And my personal thoughts are that she has some kind of involvement in this. And I've had people, and I want to read this from the chat. From Just Me, they say they believe he moved her body, but not that he's responsible for her death. Could it be Sterns said that mom did it, but they need the proof to tie her to it? Well, interesting thought. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I think the mother did it." And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that at all. I'm seeing this mostly as Stephan Sterns got found out. He was discovered what he was doing. Or perhaps Madeline was ready to tell someone.
That's
And
my
I
thought.
think this was a silencing murder. The moron that he is thought he was going to be able to kill a 13-year-old girl and get away with it. But I don't see, and I could be wrong, but I don't see Jennifer Soto as the person that killed her daughter. Mike?
Yeah, I don't. It could be. You always have to leave that door open a little bit, but I think you're right. That was my first thought. The 13th birthday party. She's 13 now. She's a little bit older. She's not 11. The fact that she recently said to someone or texted someone that she'd like to live in the woods. The alarm bells are going off. I think the same way as you. I think that she probably decided or told him that I'm going to tell my mom on you, and therefore he said it's over. Whatever relationship he had, whatever arrangement they had for a living, maybe he was sponging off of her. It's over, and he's looking at prison. He probably figured she hasn't told her mom yet, and that if he kills her and he figures out a way to try to figure out how to kind of get her to school and try to work out some sort of little innocent sounding explanation for where he was. I think that's what it is. I think you're right. It's a silencing murder to keep her from spilling the beans to her mom.
Absolutely. Didel B from the chat, I hope I pronounced your name correct. It's so pathetic when the mom, during one of those TV interviews, is consoling this pedophile, patting him on the back while he was crying crocodile tears. He actually wasn't even crying real tears. He was pretending they were tears, but they were not tears. I agree with you. Everything. Look, this guy is the worst of the worst. Anyone that can hurt a child, and especially in this manner, in this way, is just the lowest. That's why in prison, child molesters on the hierarchy of, they're all bad in prison, but on the hierarchy of bad to worst, they're the worst, and they're viewed as the lowest level of scum on the prison hierarchy. So, what does that tell you, Mike?
Yeah, he's gonna, no matter what happens, whether or not he's tied into this homicide of Madeline or not, if he's just going to end up doing time in prison, say they don't get any further information and they don't ever charge him. The fact is he's going to be in prison for decades, and he's going to have to watch over his shoulder. His head's going to have to be revolving 360 degrees every day, because there will be people who will want to take care of this. No one ever respects, somebody who beats up a grandma or touches a child. You don't ever do that. And even hardened criminals, like you say, they don't even respect you at all. Not at all.
I'm so Jacqueline. That part is really concerning to me. He truly seemed like such a leech and a loser. His friends said he was a gamer and played with toys. This makes me question Jen's judgment big time. I'm so Jacqueline from the chat. I agree with you, but I also question Jennifer's, her judgment, because this guy's living in your home with what started out to be your 11-year-old daughter, and for over 2 years, and he doesn't work a job, and he's around all the time. How many parents out there in the chat, if you tell me, I'll put a question to you. How many would be comfortable with an unemployed 40-year-old living in their home for 2 years with their 11-year-old daughter? If you think that's okay, put a 1 in the chat. If you think it's okay that this unemployed 40-year-old, and you don't even know what his criminal history is, and if you think it's outrageously out of the question that you would ever even consider that. See, I sort of loaded this poll a little bit. I sort of front loaded it and back loaded. If you think it's outrageous that anyone would even consider that, put a 2 in the chat. And I mean, I obviously know what my thoughts are on this, but how, so then when we get back to Jennifer Soto, do we even need to ask the question? Did she have a lax in judgment? Did she have poor judgment? I think I just answered that question myself. I think I did. And maybe I didn't. What do you guys, Leaf Morgan, the police would tell the mother that she had lied, so they're still going to ask her why she lied. They can't, Leaf. I tried to explain to you. They cannot talk to her anymore. If she invoked counsel, the police are not allowed to speak with her again. That's our system. That is the criminal procedure law. The police are not allowed to speak to Jennifer again. I'm sorry, but I thought I made that clear. Trent Stanley, I think that this Neanderthal has done this before. 100% Trent Stanley. This guy's got victims all over the East Coast. Yeah, absolutely. This is not his first rodeo, as they say. This is not his first time. Love Shack, I am perfectly content with being alone and will continue to make damn sure some creep doesn't come into our lives and hurt my daughter. I can have a serious relationship again once she's grown. Very good, Love Shack, Sarah, and you're the mom that's protecting their child first and foremost, which I wish every adult would do. Jane C., thank you for the $3.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Thank you, guys. Deb Tudoro. I believe mom knew. You know something, Deb? I happen to agree with you based on my law enforcement experience, based on the deception in some of the things she said, based on her comforting him during that press conference. I think you're right. I really think you're right. Vamplifier. Oh, stay-at-home dad truly sickens me. Yeah, he wasn't a dad. He was a sponge. He was sponging off her. He's living off his parents at the age of 40. He was no, Janet stuttered. It's being told on internet she told friend and friend told school and she wasn't believed. Sure hope that's... Well, Janet, you can't believe everything that goes out on the internet as a rumor. There's a lot of false information. Unsolved crimes uncovered. Hi, all. Do we know where she was after the party and prior to 7:35 a.m.? I don't see anything accounted on the timeline during this time. Unsolved crimes. Very good point. And I'm sure the police do know that. However, that is one of the things that the police are keeping close to their vest. And no, we do not know that, but it's out there. I'm sure the police have every idea what happened. Roseanne, she said something or did something during that birthday party, and he became enraged, and mom was not around to protect. However, mom covered. Well, Roseanne, that's as good a theory as anyone else's. I don't know if there's any truth to that, and we don't know. We don't know when that occurred. We don't have. Look, one of the things about Kissimmee, Florida. Sad news from Kissimmee. Her funeral was held yesterday. Family and invitees only, and Madeline's remains have been cremated. She is finally at rest. Rest in peace, Madeline. Well, thank you for that information. Absolutely. This little girl didn't deserve what happened to her. And It's a horrific situation. Folks, I got a quick commercial. If you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast, and we appreciate everything he has done for this podcast. So, Mike, we started out talking about the body language and how important that is in these cases. I don't think anyone voted one in my little poll, but I sort of made that a little. I sort of gave you the answer. I sort of leaned toward the number 2. So I gave you guys the answer. So maybe that wasn't a fair poll, but it's despicable. And Deborah Chase from the chat. There is also the denial and bargaining barrage of initial grief that she may be moving through when she's protecting herself emotionally by temporarily believing him. Deborah, that's a possibility. And, I'm just telling you what my gut is. My gut is that she did do something criminal in this case. And we'll find that out down the road. I'm thinking there is some culpability, and I'd be surprised if there isn't. Sexy Locks, is there a possibility she found out and resulted in her deletion? That the mother, Jennifer, found out? That's what some people were suggesting to me, that she found out and got jealous and killed her daughter. I don't see that at all. I don't. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we've had like the Susan Smith case from years ago in South Carolina. We have these cases occasionally, but I go with you, Bill. I just think that this 6'2", 200-pound monster leech was the one who actually did the dirty deed and killed Madeline, I think, to keep her quiet. Yeah, we could be wrong. You always got to keep that open possibility, but I don't think
Look,
so.
like Dr. G said, this is what I think, but I could be wrong. And I say the same thing. I don't have a monopoly on being right. I'm wrong lots of times, but we all can conjecture. We all can talk about what we think. Kissimmee, Florida. Bill, you would be shocked at how many pedos live around that Kissimmee community. And those are the 5% that get caught and registered. Kissimmee, Florida, it's not just Kissimmee, Florida. It's the world. You'd be surprised how many are around the world. And what is the best defense against that? Well, being a good parent, watching your kids, making sure your kids aren't put in bad situations. And you can't be a 24/7 parent. Your kids go out of your house. Your kids go to other kids' houses. You cannot be there to defend them from going into someone's home where you could potentially have, as you call it, a pedo. Yeah. And it's a dangerous situation. Emily Pagan. I've been with my partner for 14 years, and my 6-year-old twin girls have never stayed with him alone, and he's raised them. Wow. That's pretty astute and pretty protective of you, Emily, and I appreciate that. That's fantastic. You've protected them. Lily Rose, they're putting a case together, crossing all their T's and dotting their I's. And like I said, the cops know exactly what she's doing right now and where she is. Look, there's no doubt, and they're waiting, of course, for a lot of the evidence to come back. They don't have all of the evidence in yet. They're waiting, as we use it ad nauseum, as you just said, cross the T's, dot the I's, bring the strongest possible case you have, so that this dirtbag, that surely we think he's the perp in the murder too, he does never get out of jail. Unsolved crimes uncovered from the chat. Jennifer is complicit, in my opinion. Whether she was with him for money or sex, she would have known something was up. Mannerisms don't lie, and mothers know their kids. Unsolved crimes uncovered, I happen to agree with you. And I spoke about that yesterday on yesterday's show a great deal. Suzanne QT, hi guys. It doesn't add up. The mom would not know what was going on in her house. over the period for 2 years, or if not more. Poor Maddie, what she had to endure in that house at her age. Suzanne QT, I 100% agree with you. I don't buy that he was there for over 2 years and she didn't recognize some of the signs of this. I just do not buy it at all. Someone living in your house 24/7 who's probably got tons of other victims out in the community. And for her not to see signs of this, I am not buying it whatsoever. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, I don't buy it either. I don't buy it either. At the very least, she had to know as a parent that there was some strange things going on, something concerning between her daughter and this guy. Whether or not she then, helped him other than not reporting him or not doing anything, we don't know. But absolutely, it's really difficult to believe that there was absolutely no objective signs that there was something going on with with her daughter, 11-year-old daughter, 12-year-old daughter. You don't think that's a little strange that that he's always home? She's there. I think there's got to be some sign. I'm hoping there was some sign, because I don't think that there could be absolutely no sign for 2 years. Maybe she didn't want to believe it. I don't know, but I agree. 100%. There must have been
Mike,
some sign.
there's people that walk around with blinders, horse blinders on their
Yeah,
eyes, and they see nothing, they hear nothing. KPM, he was a stay-at-home SA. Yeah, you got that right. You got that right. Why would this take pictures on his phone of the SA with Madeline? Because he's a pervert. He's an absolute pervert. But you know something? As horrific as it is, this is what is putting him in jail right now.
Yes.
And he would still be out there if it wasn't for this. So yeah, these pictures, and guys, it was more than pictures. There was acts that were depicted in these photos. All right. So it was more than that. And again, I will not read that arrest warrant on my show. Out of respect for the victim, out of respect for my audience. And if you want to read the arrest warrant, it's readily available online. You can read all of the horrific details to that. But I didn't think that it was a good thing to read it on this show. I'm so Jacqueline. Well, that's a strong statement from you, Bill. It carries a lot of weight. So I'm so Jacqueline. Thank you. I try. Look, I try to have an open mind, but I also want to let you guys know. We've been there. Mike, we've been to these horrific crime scenes, and we've seen this stuff, and we've dealt with some of the most horrific people on this earth, and we've had to sit in the same room as these people. And like another human being, interview them, interrogate them, be nice to them, get them a soda, get them something for dinner, And when you really didn't want to be anywhere near this person, but that's the job of an investigator. And I always say, we use that New York word, that Jewish New York word.
Schmooze.
You got to schmooze. You got to schmooze someone to get the truth out of them. And if they need to be schmoozed, I'm Irish, but I'm married to a Jewish woman. I'll schmooze them, to get the truth, to get the information. Yeah, I absolutely will. Ebel, the sickos of the perfect hunting ground, don't they? The most vulnerable in any society, little kids. Ebel, you're 100%. Angelia Danner, you have never missed a birthday party with my kids, ever. Angelia, you're a good mom, and that's fantastic. Unfortunately, I can't say that because sometimes I would be at work for 3 or 4 days straight without going home, and that was the nature of the homicide business. And sometimes my wife throws it in my face and said, you weren't around a lot. And I go, yeah, but did my kids ever want for anything? Did they ever long? Did they ever not get new clothes, new sneakers? Were they ever the worst dressed kids in school? No. So we had to make some sacrifices, and so don't try to make me feel guilty. for not being at home at every birthday party. I tried the best I could, Kelly Herman, I've heard that he was no longer living there, and the mom called him to come take her. That I don't know. I can't conjecture that. I have any information that that's true. Sexy Lux. Honestly, it isn't so much poor judgment, but the fact that she's in denial and in some sick way, he has her believing that his intentions are deceiving her. Sexy Lux, that could be. I'm not going to say you're not correct or, but Angela McNeil, I can't wait for the autopsy. I wonder if he drugged Maddie on her birthday. Was it accidental and he panicked? Angela McNeil, the autopsy is completed. What may not be completed right now is the toxicology.
Right.
If that, in fact, comes into play. But they know the cause of death. They know the manner of death. And I'll repeat it every day as I do. Manner is homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, or undetermined. So this has already been determined to be a homicide. All right. Cause of death, they haven't reported that yet. Could it be blunt trauma? Could it be asphyxia? Could be a lot of different things, but they haven't told us what that is yet. So all of those things are part of this investigation and will help, hopefully, to put the nail in this dirtbag's coffin. And again, some people are going to say, oh, he's innocent until proven guilty. I think they got the right guy. I 100% think they got the right guy. And we'll see. We're not going anywhere either, and we're going to keep following this case. Kelly Herman, they did a private service and cremated her body when they were offered a church to do the services in, and also raised $16,000. So it all seems a little sketchy. Well, look, maybe they had no life insurance and they needed to. Sexy Locks, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Contributing to the show. It's really, as I say, it's a labor of love, but it costs money to do this show, and you guys help us to get through. Sexy Locks, background checks should be done for any parent who feels the need to take the date while having kids at home. Info, I have dances with the devil, so please do a background check. Sexy Locks, great suggestion. Absolutely great. And, these days, for those that are out there dating, you can actually, for a small fee, hire a private detective. And you can do a lot of background checks on the line. There you go, Sexy Locks. Again, thank you so much. People can hire internet services that do background checks. And you can also, if you really say fall in with someone, you want to hire a private investigator, you can find a lot of things about that person. And it might be worth it in some instances. Mike, we've been on the air for an hour and 33 minutes. It went sort of fast,
It did. Got a lot to talk about.
This is a very interesting case, and it's a heartbreaking case, and it's a case that we're seeing far too often across the country. The last one was just a couple of weeks ago. Was the little 11-year-old girl? I had a name written down here that was murdered by her father's friend who was staying in their home. So all kinds of warning signs. Cunningham was her last name. Right. All kinds of warning signs of what not to do in this world. It's just so horrific. Sue M, thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker, chipping in for us all. Let's warm our souls. Thank you so much, Sue. Sue M, very much appreciated. As I said, this is a labor of love, but labors of love sometimes cost money, and again, Kayla Montgomery, someone in the chat, exactly. Kayla Montgomery, God, it's these cases are just unbelievable. But anyway, Mike, hey, it's a joy. I'll be one more in the chat. In the past, I've hired a private eye to perform surveillance And global background checks, I never regret any money I spent. I found out what I needed to know each time.
Good.
Hey, it's Jay. Thank you very much. Mike, I'm going to give you your last word. Mike, your final thoughts.
I think we should all be very patient, give the Kissimmee Police and the Osceola County Police the credit that is due them, have the confidence in them that they're going to get to the bottom of this. Let's hope they, uncover each and every little facet of this crime and bring those, everyone involved in this to justice. Let's not be careful about making assumptions about people, because they do have that ability to be presumed innocent. However, most important thing, use your common sense when you think about these things. And if your common sense tells you that somebody's trouble, act on that common sense. That gift of fear in the back of your head, pay attention to it. If you bring in anybody into your home, or you get to know people and they seem inappropriate, that's the gift of fear. And therefore you use it and you get out of there. And I would like to, it would have been good if Jen Soto had used that and gotten Madeline out of that situation before.
Absolutely. Janet Studdard, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. And folks, thank you so much, all you guys that are supporting the Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories podcast. We really appreciate all you guys. And we try to give you true crime, real crime from a police perspective with some sensitivity involved. People were amazed how sensitive we are. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in today. Have the great rest of your day, and God bless.
Good night.
One episode just ain't enough.